People have walked out of homes, stepped off roads, or simply vanished into thin air, leaving behind silent phones, running engines, cryptic messages, and eerie traces that only deepen the mystery with every passing year. Andrew Gosden, a disappearance from 2007 with a shocking 2022 development. On the morning of September 14th, 2007, 14-year-old Andrew Gosden left his home in Doncaster, England, pretending he was heading to school. Instead, he withdrew £200 from his bank account, bought a one-way train ticket to London, and vanished. CCTV footage captured him arriving at King's Cross Station just after 11 a.m. And then, nothing. No further sightings, no digital trace, no activity on his bank account, phone, or social media. It was as though he had stepped into a major city and disappeared into thin air. For years, the case remained one of the UK's most haunting mysteries. Andrew was a gifted student with no history of running away or behavioral issues. His family searched relentlessly, posting flyers, following up on tips, and working with police, even as the trail grew colder with each passing year. But in December 2021, nearly 15 years after Andrew vanished, something unexpected happened. 2 men were arrested in connection with his disappearance, one on suspicion of kidnapping and human trafficking, and the other on suspicion of possessing indecent images. Authorities didn't release much, but the very idea that someone might know what happened to Andrew reignited public interest. It was the first major update in over a decade. Then in 2022, police executed a search at one of the men's homes. However, no charges were filed. As of now, both suspects have been released under investigation, and no public updates have clarified whether they truly knew Andrew or if the connection was a coincidence. Andrew's family has remained active and vocal. His father, Kevin Gosden, said that while they hold on to hope, they're also preparing for any outcome just to finally have closure. "If he is alive," Kevin once said, "we just want him to know there is nothing to be ashamed of. We love him, and we just want to know he's safe." The case of Andrew Gosden is chilling, not just because he disappeared, but because even after a rare breakthrough, the answers still remain just out of reach. Number 14. James Tidwell, the Texas man who vanished and was later found in a place already searched. In February 2021, 58-year-old James Tidwell left his home in Rusk County, Texas, to go fishing, and simply never came back. His vehicle was found near Martin Lake shortly after, parked with his fishing gear inside. But James himself had vanished into the surrounding woods. Family and volunteers began searching immediately. They combed through trails, checked local fishing spots, and coordinated with the Rusk County Sheriff's Office. Search dogs and drones were brought in. Even airboats swept the lake's edge. The area was methodically searched, twice, then 3 times, but days turned into weeks and nothing turned up. Then, nearly 2 weeks later, something changed. On March 1st, a group of volunteers searching once again near where James's truck had been found made a shocking discovery. His body was located less than a mile from where the initial search had been focused. According to reports, the area where he was found had already been covered earlier in the search process. How he was missed remains unclear. There were no signs of foul play. Officials stated that no injuries were found, and his cause of passing was believed to be exposure, though the official autopsy results were not publicly detailed. That led many to ask the same chilling question: how could he have been right there the whole time and not been found? James was described by his family as experienced in the outdoors and familiar with the area. He wasn't the type to wander too far off, and yet, despite ground searches, aerial sweeps, and thermal imaging, he remained hidden in plain sight. Some speculated that the wooded terrain may have camouflaged his location. Others quietly questioned whether he had passed elsewhere and been moved by natural causes or environmental shifts. But no conclusive explanation was given. James Tidwell's story may not have made national headlines, but it lingers, because it reminds us that even in the age of modern search tools and technology, people can still vanish, sometimes in places we've already looked. 13. Tiffany Foster, the Georgia woman who vanished without a trace. On March 1st, 2021, 35-year-old Tiffany Foster left her apartment in Newnan, Georgia, to run errands. She never came back. Tiffany was a mother of 3, a criminal justice student, and had been texting her sister just moments before she vanished. She had plans to board a flight to Texas just 2 days later, but never showed up at the airport. At first, authorities hoped she'd simply needed time away, but within days, those hopes faded. Her car, a blue 2000 Nissan Altima, was found abandoned in a parking lot nearly 30 miles away in College Park. Inside were her purse, keys, and all her personal belongings. It looked like she had just walked away. Except no cameras saw her. No one saw her leave. And nothing about her life suggested she had any reason to disappear. She wasn't under stress. She had no known enemies. Everything just suddenly stopped. As police began digging into her personal life, attention turned toward her fiancé, Reginald Robertson. According to reports, he was the last person to see her and had made unusual statements to police in the days following her disappearance. Things escalated when Robertson was arrested, first on unrelated charges and later in connection to moving Foster's car in an attempt to interfere with the investigation. Yet, as of today, no one has been charged with her disappearance, and her whereabouts remain unknown. Despite searches, billboards, and media coverage, not a single confirmed sighting of Tiffany has emerged since that day. Her family remains vocal, tirelessly fighting for answers. They've said that Tiffany was responsible, family-oriented, and had plans for the future. Vanishing was not in her nature. Authorities continue to classify the case as suspicious, and reward money has been offered for any information. But as time goes on, the silence surrounding Tiffany Foster's disappearance only grows louder. How does a woman with no history of trouble, with people waiting for her at the airport, simply vanish? It's been over 2 years, and the only thing certain is that Tiffany Foster never made it home, and someone out there knows why. 12. Jason Landry, the college student who vanished on a quiet Texas road. On the night of December 13th, 2020, 21-year-old college student Jason Landry left Texas State University in San Marcos, heading home to Missouri City for the holidays. He never arrived. Sometime around 11:30 p.m., Jason's car, a Nissan Altima, was discovered crashed and abandoned on Salt Flat Road, a rural and nearly pitch-black stretch near Luling, Texas. The crash didn't appear serious. The car had hit a fence, but the airbags hadn't deployed. Inside the car, investigators found Jason's wallet, phone, and keys. Strangely, his backpack, which contained his laptop and other personal items, was found about 900 feet away from the car, sitting on the ground along the road. His clothes, shirt, shorts, socks, and slides, were found in a nearby brushy area, but Jason himself was gone. Search teams scoured the area using helicopters, scent tracking dogs, drones, and thermal imaging. The terrain was rough, full of barbed wire and thick underbrush, but no trace of Jason turned up. There was no sign of a struggle, no footprints leading away, and no surveillance footage to piece together his last steps. Jason's disappearance sparked national attention and deep frustration from his family. His father, a pastor, has been vocal from the start, saying, "We just want to bring our son home." He believes something happened that night that doesn't add up, and that Jason wouldn't have just wandered off into the dark. One of the eeriest elements, Jason's phone was never used after 10:55 p.m. on the night he disappeared, even though he should have had at least another hour of driving. His last known movements are a digital blank space. Despite leads, interviews, and continued public interest, Jason Landry has never been found. Theories have ranged from accidental exposure and animal predation to something more sinister, but no definitive evidence has emerged. His case remains open with the Caldwell County Sheriff's Office, and reward money is still being offered for any information that leads to answers. What happened on that empty Texas road that night? Why did Jason leave his belongings behind? And where did he go? Until someone steps forward or new evidence surfaces, the road Jason vanished on will remain quiet and unanswered. 11. Theo Hayes, the tourist who vanished into the Australian night. On May 31st, 2019, 18-year-old Belgian backpacker Theo Hayes was last seen leaving the Cheeky Monkeys nightclub in Byron Bay, Australia, just after midnight. He waved goodbye to a group of travellers he'd met, started walking alone, and disappeared into the night. At first, no one noticed he was missing. Theo was staying at Wake Up Hostel and had planned to check out just a few days later. But when staff found his belongings untouched, including his passport, it quickly became clear something wasn't right. His family wasn't notified until June 6th, 6 days after his disappearance. They flew to Australia immediately, joining local police, volunteers, and even complete strangers in one of the country's largest missing person searches in recent memory. The only real clue came from Theo's phone data provided by Google. It revealed a strange walking path leading away from the hostel through dense bushland near Tallow Beach and stopping suddenly near the base of a cliff. The area is treacherous at night, with little to no lighting, jagged terrain, and strong tides. Many feared Theo may have accidentally fallen into the ocean, but his family wasn't convinced. Theo was reportedly texting and using WhatsApp well into the early morning hours, suggesting he was aware and functioning. He also wasn't intoxicated according to CCTV footage. And then there's the question of why he would walk towards such a remote, dangerous area at night, alone, without a clear destination. Despite extensive searches, including cadaver dogs, drones, and sonar scanning of the coastline, Theo's body was never found. His hat was discovered months later in the bushland, but DNA testing was inconclusive. Beyond that, only silence. To this day, the disappearance of Theo Hayes remains one of the most haunting cases in recent Australian history. Some speculate foul play, others believe he may have become disoriented and fallen. But without solid evidence, every theory remains just that. His parents continue to fight for answers. As his father said, "We cannot move forward without knowing. We just need to know." What really happened that night in Byron Bay? And how can someone leave such a clear digital trail, only to vanish where the signal ends? 10. Daniel Robinson, the geologist who drove into the desert and disappeared. On the morning of June 23, 2021, 24-year-old geologist Daniel Robinson left his job site in Buckeye, Arizona, headed into the Sonoran Desert, and was never seen again. Daniel had been working on a remote well project just outside Phoenix. According to co-workers, he arrived, spoke briefly, and then suddenly got back into his blue Jeep Renegade, driving off without explanation. He didn't respond to calls or texts. Hours passed, then days. Still no word. His disappearance immediately puzzled investigators. Daniel was known to be quiet but professional, intelligent, well-liked, and with no known history of wandering off. And Arizona in June is unforgiving. The desert is scorching, and survival without supplies is nearly impossible. Almost a month later, his Jeep was found, crashed and abandoned in a ravine just a few miles from where he was last seen. The vehicle was badly damaged. It appeared to have rolled down the embankment, landing on its side. But here's where things get strange. Daniel's clothes, boots, phone, wallet, and keys were all found at the crash site, outside the vehicle. His seatbelt was unbuckled. The airbags had deployed, but there was no blood, no sign of injury, and most disturbingly, no Daniel. Data from the vehicle's computer showed that the Jeep had been driven multiple times after the initial crash, raising questions about whether someone returned to the scene, or if Daniel was still alive in the area after the accident. Search efforts intensified. Drones, tracking dogs, volunteers, and law enforcement combed the desert. But months passed with no sign of him. His father, David Robinson, has led his own tireless campaign to keep the case in the public eye, even hiring a private investigator and organizing his own desert search parties. The Buckeye Police Department has stated there's no evidence of foul play, but many, including Daniel's family, aren't convinced. The crash, the missing clothes, the inconsistent data from the vehicle, it just doesn't add up. Daniel's case remains open. There have been tips, rumors, and sightings, but none confirmed. What began as a strange disappearance has become something deeper. A case full of questions, and a family still waiting for answers. What happened to Daniel Robinson in that empty desert? And why did everything seem to stop just outside the reach of the last signal? 9. Drake Kramer. The Grand Canyon disappearance that left only a cryptic message. In February 2015, 21-year-old Drake Kramer, a University of Texas student, checked into the Bright Angel Lodge at the Grand Canyon's south rim. He had driven there alone from his home in San Antonio, without telling friends or family why. He wasn't on a vacation, he wasn't meeting anyone, and within 48 hours, he would vanish without a trace. What makes this story so unsettling isn't just the disappearance, but the strange, spiritual tone that followed it. Drake was known to be intelligent, outdoorsy, and grounded. He worked at a local Home Depot, had a close relationship with his parents, and loved nature. But right before his trip, his behavior took a sudden, confusing turn. On February 1st, he sent a series of cryptic messages to friends and family. One text to his father read, "I need to be back with Mother Earth and set my soul free." Another said he was heading to the rim and that he might lay to rest a bit. These phrases set off alarm bells. His father immediately called the Grand Canyon Park Rangers and requested a wellness check. But by the time they arrived at his lodge room, Drake was gone. His car was found still parked near the lodge. Inside were his clothes, belongings, and wallet. Surveillance footage last captured him walking alone in the direction of a popular trailhead. But that's where the trail ends. Literally. A massive search effort began. Rangers, helicopters, dog teams, and volunteers scoured the rugged canyon. They searched trails, lookouts, and the edge of the rim for signs that Drake had fallen, gotten lost, or chosen not to return. But no remains, no gear, not even a footprint. His family and friends say he wasn't suicidal. In fact, he just talked about going back to school. Some believe he may have experienced a kind of spiritual episode, or dissociation, that led him into the canyon seeking something beyond understanding. Others wonder if he intentionally vanished to live off the grid. But the Grand Canyon isn't kind to those who come unprepared, and nearly a decade later, not a single clue has surfaced. What happened to Drake Kramer remains one of the Grand Canyon's most quietly chilling mysteries. A young man pulled by something unspoken into one of the world's most unforgiving landscapes, and never seen again. 8. Toni Anderson. The mysterious last text before her car was found in the river. On January 15th, 2017, 20-year-old college student Toni Anderson left a nightclub in North Kansas City around 4 a.m. She was a student at the University of Missouri, Kansas City, and worked part-time as a waitress. That night, after finishing her shift, she met up with friends at a local bar. Everything seemed normal until she got in her car to head home and vanished. At 4:42 a.m., Toni sent a chilling final text to a friend. "OMG, I just got pulled over again." That was the last time anyone heard from her. Kansas City police initially believed the text referred to a routine traffic stop, and yes, Toni had, in fact, been stopped briefly by an officer for an illegal lane change. But the stop was short, and she was let go without a citation. After that, she was never seen again. Her friends and family knew something was wrong. Toni was responsible and close with her parents. She wouldn't just vanish. Days turned into weeks. Flyers were posted. Searches were conducted. Social media lit up with speculation. Then, 2 months later, in March 2017, her black Ford Focus was found, submerged in the Missouri River, near a boat ramp close to a park. Toni's body was inside. Authorities ruled her death an accident. They said she likely became disoriented after the traffic stop, missed a turn, and accidentally drove down the icy ramp into the river. No foul play was suspected, but many people, including those close to Toni, weren't satisfied with that explanation. For one, the location of the car raised questions. The area had reportedly been searched earlier, but the vehicle wasn't spotted until much later. The absence of tire marks near the boat ramp also fueled suspicion. And then there was her final text. Again, suggesting she'd been pulled over more than once that night, but no other stop was confirmed. Online theories swirled, some suggesting cover-ups, others pointing to possible foul play. Still, no evidence ever surfaced to change the official story. To this day, the case remains a source of heartbreak and frustration. A promising young woman, gone in an instant, her final message lingering like an echo. What really happened after Tony Anderson was pulled over that early morning? Was it a tragic accident, or something else that still hasn't come to light? 7. Mitrice Richardson, the woman who vanished after a police release and was later found under murky circumstances. On the night of September 16, 2009, 24-year-old Mitrice Richardson was arrested by deputies in Malibu, California, after allegedly leaving a restaurant without paying. She wasn't drunk or combative, but her behavior had been erratic, enough that staff at the restaurant felt something was off. She was taken to the Lost Hills Sheriff's Station, booked for defrauding an innkeeper, and held for several hours. Around 12:30 a.m., Mitrice was released, alone, without her phone, purse, or car. The station, deep in the canyon and far from any open businesses, let her go into the pitch-black night with no ride, no money, and no clear direction. She was never seen alive again. In the days that followed, her family begged for answers. Why was she released at such a late hour with no transportation? Deputies claimed she seemed lucid and didn't meet the criteria for a mental health hold. But her parents insisted something had been wrong. She'd made strange social media posts, acted unusually in public, and may have been suffering from an undiagnosed mental health condition. Searches stretched into nearby canyons and trails. Helicopters, dogs, and volunteers looked for signs of her. Weeks turned into months. And then, almost a year later, on August 9, 2010, her remains were discovered in a remote area of Dark Canyon, just a few miles from the sheriff's station. Her body was partially mummified, some bones were scattered, and what disturbed experts most was that the area had reportedly been searched before, with no findings. The official cause of death was listed as undetermined. No trauma was conclusively identified, but many experts and advocates argued the scene had been mishandled, remains moved before proper forensic documentation, reports filed late, and even photographs withheld. Her family, heartbroken and furious, believes she was failed on multiple levels, by the system that arrested her, the one that released her, and the one that failed to bring her home. To this day, Mitrice Richardson's case remains open. It's more than a disappearance. It's a story of how a woman walked out of police custody, into the darkness, and into one of Southern California's most haunting unsolved cases. 6. Elaine Park, the California student who left behind a running car and vanished. On the morning of January 28, 2017, 20-year-old college student Elaine Park disappeared without a trace in Southern California. Her last known location was the affluent suburb of Calabasas. By all appearances, she had simply vanished, leaving behind a car that was still running, her belongings inside, and no sign of what had happened. Elaine had spent the night at her ex-boyfriend's house. According to his account, she woke up around 6 a.m., seemed fine, and left in her 2015 gray Honda Civic. That was the last time anyone saw her. 2 days later, her car was discovered along the Pacific Coast Highway in Malibu, parked near Corral Canyon. The doors were unlocked, the engine was still running, and her cell phone, backpack, and even cash were all inside. Her keys were in the ignition. Her clothes and makeup were still in the car. What's chilling is that there were no signs of a struggle, no skid marks, no broken glass, just a car left behind as though its owner had suddenly vanished into thin air. Search and rescue teams, helicopters, and cadaver dogs scoured the surrounding cliffs and trails. Elaine's loved ones organized searches of their own, but not a single clue. No scent trail, no items of clothing, no confirmed sightings ever surfaced. Elaine was a student at Pierce College and had previously worked in the entertainment industry. Friends described her as artistic, thoughtful, and independent. But in the weeks leading up to her disappearance, some close to her said she seemed withdrawn and anxious. Authorities investigated the possibility of foul play, but no solid leads ever emerged. Her ex-boyfriend cooperated with police and was never named a suspect, and without evidence of a crime, the case stalled. Her mother, Susan Park, has been a tireless force behind efforts to find her daughter. She launched a GoFundMe campaign, hired private investigators, and even brought in forensic experts. But despite national media attention, no new developments have brought the family closer to answers. Over the years, theories have ranged from an intentional disappearance to foul play. Some believe she may have wandered off during a mental health episode. Others fear someone may have intercepted her along the scenic but often isolated highway. To this day, no confirmed trace of Elaine Park has been found. Just a car, still running, still waiting. What happened in those final moments on the Pacific Coast Highway? And why did a promising young woman simply vanish into the morning fog? 5. David Snedden, the student who vanished and was allegedly spotted in North Korea. In August 2004, 24-year-old American student David Snedden disappeared while hiking in China's Yunnan province. He was a fluent Korean speaker, studying abroad and planning to attend law school. On August 14th, he was last seen leaving a guest house in the city of Shangri-La. He told a friend he planned to hike alone through Tiger Leaping Gorge, one of the region's most rugged and dangerous areas. When he didn't return, his parents grew concerned. Chinese officials later claimed he likely died after falling into a river while hiking, but no body was ever recovered, and no belongings were found downstream. The Snedden family didn't accept the official explanation. They said it didn't fit with who David was: experienced, cautious, and capable. His bank accounts, credit cards, and phone showed no activity after he vanished, and most notably, they believed Chinese authorities closed the case far too quickly. Then came the strange part. In the years that followed, reports began to surface suggesting that David had not died in China, but had been kidnapped and taken to North Korea. A South Korean news agency claimed intelligence sources reported sightings of an American man matching David's description living in Pyongyang, teaching English to Kim Jong-un and other high-ranking officials. This theory isn't as far-fetched as it sounds. North Korea has a known history of abducting foreign nationals, including South Koreans, Japanese citizens, and at least one American soldier. The idea that they would target a young man fluent in Korean isn't impossible. In 2016, the U.S. House of Representatives passed a resolution urging the State Department to reopen David's case, citing credible reports that he might still be alive. However, despite multiple inquiries, no definitive evidence has surfaced, no photos, no recordings, no diplomatic confirmation. David Snedden has now been missing for nearly 2 decades. His parents continue to fight for answers, convinced that their son is alive and being held against his will. The US government has not officially confirmed the North Korea theory, but the case remains open. What happened to David Snedden after he stepped onto that trail in 2004? Did he fall? Was he taken? Or is he still alive, living under a name not his own, in a country that denies his very existence? 4. Leah Croucher, the young woman who vanished without a trace until 2022. On the morning of February 15, 2019, 19-year-old Leah Croucher left her family home in Milton Keynes, England, and began walking to work, as she did every day. She never arrived. She was last seen on CCTV around 8:16 a.m., just a short distance from her home. Nothing seemed unusual. No one reported any signs of struggle, but from that moment forward, Leah simply disappeared. Her phone stopped responding. Her bank cards and social media accounts were never touched again. And despite a wide-scale search involving dogs, drones, helicopters, and volunteers, no trace of Leah was found. Posters went up across the city. Police combed through local lakes and woodland. Nothing. Her family was devastated. They described Leah as quiet, thoughtful, and deeply connected to her loved ones. She wasn't the type to run away. Her disappearance left them with a constant gnawing question: where had she gone? For over 3 years, the case remained cold. Then in October 2022, a shocking discovery was made, just a 15-minute walk from Leah's home. Contractors were conducting work on a large detached house on Locksbear Drive when they reported finding human remains in the loft. The property had been vacant at the time of her disappearance. Police confirmed the remains belonged to Leah Croucher. In that same house, officers also found a rucksack and personal items known to belong to her. The scene triggered an immediate shift in the investigation, from a missing person case to a murder inquiry. Soon, a suspect emerged: Neil Maxwell, a 49-year-old man who had access to the home as a maintenance worker. He was already wanted for unrelated sexual offenses at the time Leah went missing. But tragically, Maxwell died by suicide just weeks after the last known sighting of Leah in 2019, making him unreachable for questioning. This raised a painful possibility. Was Leah in that house the entire time? Had authorities missed her in the early searches? And could her case have been solved years earlier? Leah's family expressed heartbreak not only over the loss of their daughter, but also over how close she had been all along. "We're haunted by how near she was," one family member said. "We feel she was left there, voiceless." To this day, the full story of what happened inside that home remains unclear. The answers may have died with the man suspected of taking her life, but Leah's memory and her family's fight for justice are far from forgotten. 3. The Dublin Vanishing Triangle, Ireland's string of unsolved disappearances. In the 1990s, a disturbing pattern began to emerge in Eastern Ireland. Women were vanishing, without warning, without witnesses, and without a trace. These weren't isolated cases. They all happened within a relatively tight area surrounding Dublin, earning it a chilling name: the Vanishing Triangle. Between 1993 and 1998, at least 8 women between the ages of 17 and 39 disappeared under suspicious and eerily similar circumstances. Some were last seen walking to work, others vanished while hiking, visiting friends, or even just stepping outside their front doors. In most cases, there were no signs of struggle, no bodies, no suspects, nothing. The disappearances included Annie McCabe, an American student who disappeared in 1993 after boarding a bus to the Dublin mountains. Jojo Dullard, last seen in 1995 hitchhiking home from Dublin. Fiona Sinnott, who vanished in 1998 after leaving a pub in Wexford. Ciara Breen, who disappeared from her bedroom in Dundalk in 1997. And these are just a few. Several other women disappeared in similar ways, and for decades, the cases have haunted Ireland. What ties them together isn't just the region, but the complete lack of evidence. Despite media attention, public appeals, and reopened investigations, no trace of these women has ever been found. No definitive link has been established, but the similarities have kept theories alive for years. Some suspect the work of a serial offender. Others believe it could be multiple unrelated cases, each tragically unsolved. There were occasional suspects and persons of interest, but no charges were ever filed. Families were left in limbo, grieving but without closure. The Irish police force, the Gardaí, were widely criticized for their handling of the cases. Many believed that delays, lack of coordination between departments, and dismissive attitudes toward missing women contributed to missed opportunities in the early days of each investigation. In recent years, new forensic methods and cold case reviews have been applied to some of the files. In 2023, authorities reopened several investigations, hoping that time and science might reveal something that had been missed. But so far, the triangle still holds its secrets. The most unsettling aspect: many of the disappearances occurred in populated areas, near bus stops, neighborhoods, even in daylight hours. How could so many women simply vanish in a country known for its tight-knit communities? Today, the Dublin Vanishing Triangle stands as one of Europe's most haunting unresolved mysteries. The names and faces of these women remain etched in the public memory, and until answers surface, The triangle remains open, silent, cold, and painfully unexplained. 2. Henry McCabe, the disturbing voicemail before he vanished. In the early hours of September 7, 2015, 32-year-old Henry McCabe vanished without a trace after a night out in Spring Lake Park, Minnesota. He had been dropped off around 2 a.m. near his home. Minutes later, his wife received a voicemail, one that remains one of the most chilling pieces of unexplained audio ever linked to a missing person case. Henry was a well-liked family man and a Minnesota Department of Revenue auditor. That night he'd gone out with friends to a local club. One friend held onto his wallet to prevent overspending, a move they agreed on ahead of time. But by the end of the night, Henry was dropped off not at home, but at a gas station a few miles away. What happened next is still unclear. At 2:28 a.m., Henry's wife received a voicemail from his phone. It wasn't a typical message. The audio lasted just over 2 minutes and captured what sounded like growls, grunts, gasps, and a sudden scream, then silence. In the background, a calm male voice can be heard saying, "Stop it." Investigators and audio experts reviewed the voicemail, but no clear answers emerged. Was he in pain? Was someone with him? Was it staged or real? The voicemail was so unsettling that some initially believed it might be faked, but law enforcement confirmed it originated from Henry's phone. Despite extensive searches using helicopters, divers, and K9 teams, no trace of Henry was found for nearly 2 months. Then, in November 2015, his body was discovered in Rush Lake, 6 miles from where he was last seen. Authorities stated there were no signs of trauma, and the death was ruled accidental drowning. But many people, including Henry's family, have never been convinced. The voicemail, the location of his body, the timeline, all leave more questions than answers. If Henry drowned, why were there no signs of water or distress on the call? How did he end up so far from where he was dropped off without a car or wallet? And who was the voice in the background? To this day, the circumstances of Henry McCabe's disappearance remain one of Minnesota's most puzzling cold cases. A terrifying voicemail, a vanished man, and a recovery that only deepened the mystery. Was it an accident, or something much stranger? 1. Xavier Dupont de Ligonnès, the fugitive father, allegedly spotted in 2020. In April 2011, French police arrived at a quiet home in Nantes to find a scene that would haunt the country for years. Buried under the patio were the bodies of 5 people, Xavier Dupont de Ligonnès' wife and their 4 children. The family dog had been killed too, but Xavier, he was gone. Before the discovery, neighbors had noticed that the family home had gone unusually quiet. Mail had piled up. Shutters were closed. A strange letter supposedly from Xavier was sent to friends and relatives, claiming that he was a U.S. intelligence agent and had been relocated along with his family as part of a witness protection program. It was bizarre, and within days, clearly false. Police believed that Xavier murdered his entire family sometime in mid-April 2011, then vanished. Surveillance footage later showed him checking into hotels, withdrawing cash, and walking alone through the south of France. His car was found abandoned near a monastery. After that, nothing. He disappeared completely. For years, Xavier Dupont de Ligonnès became France's most wanted man. Sightings were reported across Europe, in South America, and even in the United States, but none were ever confirmed. Then in 2020, hope for a resolution suddenly reignited. Authorities in Glasgow, Scotland, arrested a man arriving from Paris who they believed was Xavier. Fingerprint matches seemed to confirm the identification. News broke that the infamous fugitive had finally been caught, but within 24 hours, that lead fell apart. DNA tests revealed the man was not Xavier Dupont de Ligonnès at all, but a completely unrelated individual. The case once again collapsed into uncertainty and deepened the legend of his escape. What makes this case so unsettling isn't just the brutality of the murders, but the methodical calm that followed. Xavier wrote calm farewell letters, paid off debts, and erased nearly every trace of himself. Some believe he died by suicide in the wilderness. Others think he escaped with help, perhaps from religious connections, given his last known movements near Catholic monasteries. Despite an international warrant and constant surveillance of leads, no confirmed trace of Xavier has ever been found. His face remains etched into Europe's collective memory. A father, a fugitive, a ghost. What drives a man to destroy his entire family and then vanish so completely? Until someone comes forward, or until he's found, Xavier Dupont de Ligonnès remains one of the most chilling unsolved mysteries in modern criminal history.